Started working with National Fishermen Cooperative probably about 4 years ago. It was really clear to us that the cooperative was making changes in the plant, in their fleet, with their members in order to have a more sustainable fisheries. And they were also pushing and lobbying for government to make some changes across the entire fishery. And we realized that we needed to distinguish their product from any other product. And that's kind of how the entire conversation started around traceability. It's always good to have everybody at the table. But in some of the discussions that we're having, we needed to start a conversation with the cooperative on their own first, for them to determine what it is that they wanted to see, where they wanted to go. We're also having parallel discussions with the authorities, because we needed to know at the same time, what is it that the authorities, in this case the Belize Fisheries Department, what is it that they required? What do they need for their own fisheries management? So we just brought these two things together. The staff at the co-op, at National Fishermen Co-op, are fairly young. And I think that is probably one of the things that might have led to this being as successful as it has been so far. The plant manager, Eden Leon, he was really excited about the idea of implementing a traceability system in their plant. He could see from the very onset the advantages of doing that and how it would improve things for him. I would say it was actually more difficult convincing the management committee that traceability would be a good thing. And for them, it was really more about the dollars at the end of the day. Would they be able to afford a system and maintain it? And that was and continues to be their hesitation in terms of having the traceability system and the tally system in the plant. In partnership with other organizations such as Future Fish, we're able to facilitate some of those discussions sort of between cooperative and government, and also buyers as well. So what we were able to do was to look at things a little bit more holistically, looking at the bigger picture and looking at fisheries management and how a system like traceability actually assists and feeds into the fisheries management system. In my opinion, that is one of our greatest strengths, is really to facilitate those discussions and really bring people to the table, and to provide some of those, that guidance and vision for where they want to see the entire industry go. Once they're at the point where they have a shared vision, we can step back. We don't need to be in that room anymore. There's definitely some challenges in implementing a traceability system in a co-op in Belize City. Some of the things are simply like bandwidth, Wi-Fi. We've got poor internet connectivity. It drops often, and any kind of delay when you're in a processing plant, it slows the whole thing down. So that's one of the issues that we're dealing with right now. Just rewiring everything, getting all that infrastructure in place. It's a difficult climate. It's a very small space as well. But sourcing things like labels and ink for the printer and things like that, that's really specialized, that you can't go into, we don't have an office depot or anything like that. I was surprised by how little the upgrades cost. I was expecting things to be much more expensive, and getting a new network in place, making sure all the wiring and all that networking was done well. I think perhaps that's because it is a small plant, and it was fairly easy to rewire and put those things in place. When we first entered into the idea of traceability, the plan was and still continues to be that the traceability in place would open up markets, new markets, premium markets. That was always the hope. Reality is that it's not that easy. So on the financial side, to be able to get enough of a premium to cover the costs of the system is a huge challenge that we're facing right now. And one of the reasons is because in fisheries, the profit margins are already so low. As human beings, we are terrible estimators of time and how long it takes to do things. We always say that, oh, we'll be able to do this in a year or 2 years, and then 5 years down the road, nothing. We would like to be able to do it in a couple of years. That was our original plan. But any organization, any company, any entity wanting to engage in it really needs to be able to dig in for the long haul. A lot of times the funding that you get is for 1 year. And it is really difficult, if not impossible, to be able to show real tangible changes in that 1 year, other than maybe doing a report or doing an assessment, but not having the tangible impact on the water or on the ground. So I think that's a failure on our part in the NGO sector in general, and also in philanthropy, because there are those expectations, and that's not reality. So even if it's sort of smaller investments over a longer period of time, managing those expectations and not putting the onus on the recipients of those grants to be able to do that will, I think, just make everything a little bit more realistic. I would love to be able to express failures and where things have just gone completely unexpected, and not sort of feel as if we would get reprimanded. We actually have a really, really great relationship with one of our donors right now, and to me it's one of the best relationships that we have, where they came to us and they told us from the very, very beginning, it's like, look, if something happened that's unexpected, if you need more money, if you can't spend the money fast enough, whatever it is, we prefer that you tell us now, and so we can plan for it. And one of the great things is we have monthly check-in calls for half an hour, keeps the dialogue open. What I've seen is that Eden, the plant manager, is able to kind of pull up all the information, all the inventory, just like that. It's just really quick, and he can show you right there. He'll sit in the office and he'll show you exactly, which fisherman was fishing where, how much they brought in for that month. You could never see that before. It's made an incredible difference to what he's able to recall. And I know he's expressed to me, like before, it would take him like 2 guys an entire day to go in and do a stock take and check everything. Now it's like he could just look at it on his computer and it's all there. It's about building relationships. It's about spending time, sitting down, listening to the issues. I mentioned this before, but really everything takes longer than you would think. And it's to plan for that and be prepared to kind of, sort of work together for a really long period of time, because it's not going to happen overnight. We'd like it to. So one of the things that we've definitely seen is that sometimes you need to demonstrate success. People need to see that something's working before you can convince them and say, you need to put this in your plant. The idea is, let's demonstrate this in one co-op first, show how it works, show how it can link to the fisheries management system and adaptive management framework at the fisheries department, and then scale up and then continue to support across the other companies. Our nature is that we need to see how something works, and especially something like this, because implementation of traceability is a huge change. It's a whole shift. It's a behavioral shift. When we first started talking about traceability, one of the things that we absolutely had to be certain that we weren't going to do was to ask the fishermen to do anything differently from what they currently do. The management committee at the co-op told us, and they said, look, if you're going to ask them to do anything different, it's going to fail. So that's the reason why we started first in the plant, where we're working with the co-op, we're working with the staff at the co-op. That will slowly sensitize the fishers as they're landing. They'll see this new system, then they might get curious. Knowing what others have done, knowing where they have failed, is very, very valuable, so that we don't make those same mistakes. And knowing where they've been successes. I think that's really where it's just absolutely important and critical to facilitate the exchanges, facilitate that communication, share those lessons, that's one of the things that I'm looking for.